to be able to join with us today as we continue in our Civic Conversations. And again, that means we get to conversate. And because we get to conversate, you know, that is a real word. That means that you and I are able to talk about the issues that affect us even in this day. Now, I'm not Deion Sanders, but can I have my theme song? Hey, y'all, it's just good to be back. Good to be back. And so as we prepare to dive into our discussions, I'm going to ask my executive pastor, the Reverend E. Tyrone Pittman, if he will lead us in prayer, and then we will engage in our discussion for today, or tonight.
Thank you, Pastor. Good evening, everyone. Dear God, our Father and our Mother, it's once more again that we bow in your presence. Thank you, first and foremost, just for the blessings of today, just for allowing us to be in this moment, just for us to meet one more time, to have some conversations. We're grateful that you allow us not to be ignorant, but if we would just make ourselves available to you, to your son and servant, our senior pastor, one Adolphus Clarence Lacey, there is much for us to learn and much for us to discuss. So even as you continue to use him in this season and on this evening, that you will use all of us as we engage in a robust conversation. We consider it already done simply because we've asked and touched in the spirit and agreed by saying amen and amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. And certainly, we have now made our move from Civics 101, Civics 201, and Civics 301 to Civic Conversations. And what that means is it's 701. If y'all don't act right, I don't have no problem being done at 801. I can handle a conversation by myself. But again, if we want to do this, we do this together. Those of you who are watching on Facebook, I encourage you to tag and share. But those who are on Facebook or on our YouTube, I encourage you to come in to the site so that you might be able to participate, that we might be able to explore all of these things together. Because I love questions, and I just love questions. I love for us to be able to be engaged together. So again, if we can conversate, that's cool. But I'm not hanging out forever. But I do think what we need to explore is appropriate, and you will be blessed by that. We didn't get to finish what we did last week as we came back again after taking a 8-week hiatus in that regard. But so let me just recap right here, right now. So when we're looking at the authority in the United States of America, we're looking at a legislative branch that has 535 people, 100 senators, and 435 congresspersons. That's how you give 100. That's how you get the 535. We're looking at an executive branch, which is really one president. And mine is just to say, because I love my vice president, I love her, and I will defend her. And the point is, watch this, in the executive branch is only one that matters, not the vice president, not the deputy, not anybody, not the secretaries, it's the president. And everybody that serves for the everybody that serves underneath the president serves at the pleasure of the president. And so I'm thankful for Kamala Harris for what she seeks to do. But again, the president currently is Joseph Biden. And then you have 9 Supreme Court justices that are not elected, but that are appointed and confirmed by the Senate. So in the United States, let's just be clear. So in the United States of America, you're dealing with 535 in the legislative branch, 1 in the executive branch and 9 in the judicial branch. And everything that we do is governed by them from a federal basis. From a federal basis. And so we took a look at that. And then since we were looking at that federal basis of the authority of what people could have, and some people could argue for an unelected base that can determine what happens in terms of the Supreme Court of the United States of America, we look at 4 cases I want to share with you. We didn't get to talk about Roe v. Wade, and that is the overturning of abortion. That it used to be a woman's right to be able to choose, that was guaranteed by the federal government. Let me back up. When we begin to engage in this conversation, those of us as African Americans who found ourselves in Mississippi and in Alabama and in Louisiana and in Georgia, when the whole government was trying to change its direction, South Carolina, all of these states were like, oh no, we're not doing that. So when we look at after slavery, after those of us who are of African descent were enslaved and then were later on freed, what was able to secure our freedom was that the federal government was to be able to provide troops to guarantee. That's what it was. The troops were there to guarantee. So they had an army to guarantee what took place. So you always had this inherent difference between states' rights and the federal government's rights. We'll deal with that in a deeper conversation, or even as you ask your questions. But my point in bringing this up is to allow us to see is that, ironically, what the Republicans are now seeking to do, or those who are technically of a Republican hue or a conservative hue, is going back to states' rights. And so in that regard, instead of the federal government guaranteeing a woman the right to choose what happens to her body, because it is her body. I mean, it is. I mean, you can't change it. It is her body, and therefore her choice. But what they have sought to do is say, you know what? Let the states decide. And some states say that a woman has a choice, and some states say that a woman does not have a choice. And that's what we engaged with, what the Supreme Court sought to do. And I remember having this discussion with you all maybe about 5 years ago, and we were talking about what it means that when something is sacrosanct, when something is already established. And there was no way in anybody's mind that we think that Roe v. Wade would be overturned. We didn't think so.
Are you absolutely sure about that? Because as Reverend Sharpton reminds people every week on his program, on his national show, that the results of what happened as results of the 2016 election, he was able to appoint 3 ultra conservatives to the court, which gives them a supermajority.
I agree with you in that regard, Deacon Beckwith. But what I was saying is just generally that there was no expectation of that. Now, what Sharpton didn't tell you in that regard is that RBG is because we are in this situation. Okay? So what I'm just saying is there was no way that this thing should have been overturned. It was overturned. Watch this. Oh, I just hate when I stumble across something because of two white women. A white woman that thought she was the savior, RBG, and didn't want to resign and step down, and Hillary Clinton that people hated more than her husband. And even though she wasn't even in office. That, oh my God, let me just tell you this. We're in this situation because RBG refused to step down. And even linked out that President Obama asked her to do so. And also, people hated Hillary Clinton so much based upon the policies of her president, of her husband, who was president, even though she wasn't president. And that's why we engage in civics. And so so somebody would say, well, Pastor Lacey, what's the purpose of our civics? To know who to point the blame at. That's what we want to do. Because what we've been doing, we've been pointing the blame at the wrong people. And we've been missing the point over and over again. And you get tricked and duped over and over again. So I thank you, Beckwith, because Christopher jumped the gun. I was just setting it up. But nonetheless, all I wanted to just say is that this is something that we don't participate in a lot in talking about the role and the importance of the Supreme Court. And in that regard, the Supreme Court matters so much that you got to sacrifice some other ideals, some other thoughts, you know. So in that regard, we had Roe v. Wade. Secondly, we have SFA versus Harvard and SFA versus NCU. And basically, it now says in universities, affirmative action is dead, that you cannot look at nobody's race to be able to determine their access to the university. And again, the sad part is people thought affirmative action was trying to get unqualified Black folk into college. Really, all affirmative action was trying to do was to make sure that qualified Black folk got into college. And I'm trying to teach you all the language to be able to say, because that's what they're trying to say. They're trying to say somebody who can't pass a test, who can't read, who can't write, deserves to be in school. No, that is not what affirmative action was about. It wasn't. It was about allowing those who were qualified to be able to get in. And guess again, who made that decision? My point is, I'm not talking about the 535. I'm not talking about the 1. I'm talking about the 9. And so in our lifetime, the one that is making the most of the decisions in our life is the United States Supreme Court, SCOTUS. Being able to determine how a woman uses her body. And Clarence Thomas also said that it can go even further than that, not only in terms of birth, but also in terms of recreation, or in terms of your identity. No. I want you pay close attention to what's taking place. Then you have the 303 Creative LLC versus Elanis, which is basically somebody refused to make a cake for an LGBT couple. That's all it is. Like, really? Really, just make the damn cake. But nonetheless, it offends you so much that you cannot make a cake. Now, in all of those cases, the Supreme Court did what everybody expected it because it was conservative. But what happened yesterday led us to a great discussion in terms of redistricting in Alabama. And so when I'm talking, so basically, remember, according to the Constitution, every 10 years we do a census. And in that census, you look at the population of your territory, of the state. And then the state legislatures then draw jurisdictions, voting areas where people are able to go. And somehow in Alabama, as many Black people in Alabama, they just want to give Alabama one voting district. They just want Alabama to have one Black person out of 7, because they have 7 people. So 7 people, they said, no, you're not getting 2. You're only getting 1, even though their population required 2 or suggested 2. They said no. So it was sued in court. And then the Supreme Court made a decision, and the federal court made a decision, and then they said they were not going to follow. Think about that. Before I rush to what has happened, can anybody just respond to the history of Alabama and southern states telling the federal government, you don't tell us what the hell to do? That's y'all. I know, come on, y'all. Come on. Because this got to be sacrosanct. That ought to be like, hallelujah, amen.
Led to a civil war.
Right, but even deeper. No, that's too simple. You missed back. Again, why was the federal government, this is after the Civil War, Gary. After the Civil War.
Right.
Integration of schools.
Okay, well now give me.
Didn't it lead to the KKK?
Okay, no. Jackie said it. Jackie, say more.
The integration of schools. The federal government had to come in to protect the students getting into schools.
That's what she said. So listen to it, and we forget this, and that's why they want you to forget this. Is that when we decided that all of us are equal, there were state governors, there were state mayors, there were local mayors and politicians that says we are integrating. So in order for these kids to go to school in Mississippi or Arkansas, Little Rock, or in Louisiana, they had to have federal troops that could guarantee they can go there, to guarantee that they could get into the building. I mean, that's why we got the most famous Little Rock 9. The Little Rock 9 is escorted to school every day by federal troops. And I forgot the date, but I do believe that was 60 something, meaning it's still in my generation. And for those who say, when was it?
I think that was 57.
57. Okay, I mean, close. So thank you, but I'll take that. But still, 57. 1957. This ain't like 19. We're not talking about 1767, 1567, 1367, 1957 to be able to integrate. And if I am correct, then, and I know you might know this, Beckwood, and wasn't that the same school that the owner of the Dallas Cowboys was at? Okay, he said yes. I mean, so the point was that was part of the culture, but the only way that these people could go to school was that there was a military. Wow, they had armed escorts taking them to school. Let me just pause parenthetically and also say, also in our lifetime, we saw that in Chicago in a different way when they were being bused in Boston. Y'all remember that in the 80s? The busing those kids. I mean, but the point is, we see this over and over again. And when we bring it up, they said, why are you dwelling in the past? We're not dwelling in the past. This is right now in our regular future. So in that, you saw the Supreme Court come forth and overturn a woman's right to choose. The Supreme Court overturned the aspect of trying to write a wrong in education. We saw the Supreme Court, therefore, say that somebody doesn't have to make a cake in light of somebody being gay. Watch this. Let me stay here before I go to the next one because they say free choice. But if I'm a murderer, you can still make my cake. If I'm a pedophile, you can still make my cake. Do y'all see that? I mean, I want y'all just to see this. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I love it because I love dialogue. Jackie, come on.
Actually, yesterday was the anniversary, September 25th, 1957.
Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't even know that. Thank you. Thank you for telling me of this decision. And so so that's 4 bad decisions. But then ironically,
Pastor Lacy,
yes.
quick question. As we're considering pointing fingers, before we go too far from the Supreme Court, do you think there'll ever come a time where we will establish guardianship or maintenance of their ethics in light of all that transpired over the summer with the Clarence Thomas, why the ethics was never set up for them, that every other entity has some level of ethic control? But as we saw played out all summer long, it was talked about, but we're not even talking about it anymore. And is that something that we really don't have control over, or is it something?
Well, I love that. Pastor Pittman, that's it's a powerful question. Ironically, I had that conversation with Pastor Senator Warnock in there about how to respond to this. And the challenge that we face is, it's not necessarily ethics, it's numbers. So until the rules of the Senate are changed, you can't do anything. Because, you got to still have a House and Senate. But what we said last week when we restarted, remember our Constitution starts with we the people. So hence, let's be clear. And I want us to always understand, it sounds crazy because they're elected every 2 years and those are the crazies, but the Constitution gives the power to the House. The House. So this House is going to act a fool and make sure that we don't even get a budget to be able to make our government shut down, as opposed to the Senate, as opposed to the other people and the president. The Article 1 is the House. It is not the presidency and it is not the Senate. It is not judicial. But in that regard, what is needed is really a change of numbers. And right now we're so closely divided that no, they won't do that because, Clarence Thomas, which is it's just the saddest example. It's a sad example. You mean to tell me, but watch this, if a regular federal judge did that, they would lose their job. They would be impeached. But Clarence Thomas cannot be. And that's one of the things but we have been so polarized that we cannot agree to how to do that. But so that's what I'm saying. Our challenge is you either throw it up or you got to get enough votes in that regard, on that top level. Lily, I'm sorry, but great question, Pastor.
I feel like the main problem nowadays is how effective protests are. Protests are really, really effective, as we've seen, especially in America. And the problem with the progression that we went through and why we're now degressing is the fact that the majority ended up feeling wronged. They ended up feeling like they're the minority, like they're being disproportionately affected by the progression that's going on in America. So they protest, and with their large number of people, like how many Republicans and stuff there are, or just like intense conservatives, like those conservatives who wanted to conserve what it was like in 1900. And since they're fighting for their rights and how USA reacts to protests, especially when it's a great deal of numbers, they're the ones who are starting to get their way again. Because for a while, as progression was going on, they weren't speaking out. Speaking out wasn't as easy as it is now, because now all you have to do is pick up your phone and send a bunch of tweets and something somehow will get done. And that's what's going on now. So America is back to trying to please the white majority.
Well, what's happening is, and again, and let me be clear, and I'm gonna say this. One thing that Justin has taught me to say is try to speak uninterruptedly for 1 minute so that you can get a 1 minute clip. So let me see. I'm proud to be an American. I really am. However, in the midst of this, what Lily has revealed to us is this duplicity. Even you can go all the way back as far as Thomas Jefferson saying, you know, that we all have inalienable rights, but yet you did not recognize African enslaved Africans. And then you can hear there are stories of hundreds of thousands of African American men who served this country in World War I and World War II, who felt more American in Germany and in Italy than they did in the United States of America. They could be lynched coming home, but they were protected of abroad. And so that's one of the challenges, this duplicity that has taken place. And that's what we're called to challenge and to remind us of. And that's what they are afraid. They don't want us to remind us of this duplicity. It's almost like somebody in the family that, did some stuff that's unsultry and everybody just like, you don't talk about it no more. I'm sorry, slavery is not that. Because the reason why America is great is because of slavery, free labor. And so if they don't like the word slavery, you can say, you get a head start from free labor. All I'm just telling you, I like my house. I love my car. I love my clothes. What would happen if I didn't have to pay for nobody to iron my clothes? If I had to pay nobody to wash my car, if I didn't have to pay nobody to clean my house, if I didn't have to pay nobody to cook my food, if I didn't have to pay nobody to cut my hair. Y'all hear what I just said? That's what made America great, is free labor. And then in this regard, when this free labor is now articulating their freedom that supposedly is given, we're supposed to just shut the hell up. And it's not supposed to be that way. And so what I'm just saying is those were the things for affirmative action and all of that, because let me put a good bow tie on this, is that when you're looking at what Martin Luther King and others had sought to do during the civil rights movement, is that African Americans were given freedom by the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. And so the 13th Amendment freed them, the 14th Amendment naturalized them, and then the 15th Amendment gave them the right to vote. But ironically, check this out, do your research. It wasn't until 1968, the first time that all people were able to vote. And since 1968, there's been a group of people that has been trying to stop people from voting. And primarily, they have been Republican to stop that. Those are facts. I can't change that. And that's what I want us to know. Until 1998, that election allowed everybody to be able to vote. And after that, there began to be a whole bunch of things to try to, again, find a way to stop people from being able to vote. And so what I want us to see when we're looking at this particular current trend with our United States Supreme Court, SCOTUS, is that they have typically skewed very conservative. But every now and then, something right. And does that mean I give them credit? No, because a broken clock is right twice a day. A broken clock is right twice a day. So guess what they did this week? They agreed with the federal court that redistricting in Alabama was inappropriate, and they agreed with the lower court that there should be 2 districts. Wow, that's a big deal. That is a big deal. And the point is, that's what we would want. I mean, just looking at it at the merits as opposed to looking at it from a Democratic basis or a conservative basis or a northern or a southern. It's like, no, really? It ought to take place. So we have that. But now we're going to go to another case. Any comments before I go further over those cases? Okay, so I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chris. Go ahead, Chris, because I like what you said.
It just seems that with that with case in Alabama, it basically seems that the Supreme Court feels like they're just throwing us a bone to, I guess, satisfy us in some sense. Well,
I mean, they might think you're satisfying, but here's the challenge that we're facing, and we honestly got to deal with. The Republican, here's the point. Let me tell you the Republican the African-American game plan is the federal government. That's what we always sought to do. The white state, whether they're racist, whether they're segregationists, whatever, the point is the opposite of that is to focus on the states. And hence, they have sought to empower the states to be able to make those decisions. So while we celebrate and love Hakeem Jeffries and Nadia Vasquez and Meeks and all of them, what about your state legislatures? Because right now your state legislatures are the ones that are determining the districts. And that's what they have sought to do in taking over school districts to be able to. So they went local. We went national. The African-American agenda is a national agenda. It's not a local agenda. And that's what you got to be able to talk about that. And I want y'all to see the difference is that we need a federal government to intervene. No, they want the superintendent and the school and the mayor and that to be able to, and when you look at us as 12% of the population, you continue to lose. And that's why we had a national agenda. And those who are against our agenda, they look to go for a local agenda because they will have more numbers. And that's what you have with the Electoral College. In terms of why, I mean, just think about this. I think there's less than 1 million people in Wyoming, and they get 3 votes. They get 3 votes. And they ain't trying to give. There are more people in Puerto Rico who are American citizens. There are more people in Guam, but again, Wyoming, Idaho, North Dakota, South Dakota, they like, oh, hell no, we ain't voting for that. The numbers aren't there, the way our Constitution is written. And so what we have to do is, whether or not you have a Constitutional Convention to try to change it or something, but currently the way it's constituted, you can't deliver that. And that's why I want us to also, when we're engaged in our conversation, Deacon Bedwell, is for us not to say you, because certainly you didn't say this, but you led me to this, to not be engaged in hyperbole, to think what we could deliver when you can't deliver. Now, it's good for doing something like Trump was saying he could build a wall. Trump didn't build no wall. but it sounds good. And then for us out DC statehood, Puerto Rico, like, okay, what are the votes? You need 60 votes in the United States Senate. In a Senate currently right now that only has a 1% majority. Quit saying that. And that's what we want to do. That's why you all are in this civic class, for us to be engaged in, to say, you know what, we can still fight and try to get that, but we don't believe in a silver bullet. Any other questions? Okay, Horatia.
Yes, Pastor Lacy, with regard to Alabama and that the Supreme Court states that they should have 2 districts, do you think that'll happen?
Yes. Well, what happened is, Horatia, I love that you said that, because first of all, they tried to defy it. And again, that's why you had federal troops back in the past having to enforce the power of the federal government. But yes, in this time, they will, because they tried twice. And each time it got struck down. So yes, it will be. And think about that. And they hate it, but the population of, beloved, I want you all to see, I mean, we're in New York and it's a different thing. But when you look at the amount of Black people in South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas might be different. It's like it makes a difference on how the districts are formed and shaped. And that's a major blow. And I don't think it's like just a throw off. It might be a throw off, but they actually decided to say it actually is true. It doesn't make any sense to be able to do that. And here's the point, the point for you and I, and for our friends and our family who don't want to fill out the damn paper for the census. All of this stuff is driven by filling out the damn paperwork. And we still underrepresent. So it's funny, I was listening to a show the other day, and I'm hearing some Black woman tell people not to vote. But I ain't never heard a white person tell somebody not to vote. I ain't heard that. I ain't seen it on no television show. Just think about that. I ain't seen it on Facebook. I ain't seen it on my Instagram. I ain't seen white folk telling white folk not to vote. Somehow, somebody convinced Black people to tell other Black people not to vote. That's crazy. That's what, come on, stay right here. Somebody bounce back with me. Hit me. Let's dialogue on. I got some stuff on this paper, a whole lot, but dialogue on with me on this. Have you ever heard that?
Yes, because they claim that it doesn't make a difference.
Yeah. So Black folks say it don't make a difference, right?
I'm thinking people are being paid. Every time I see a Black person behind Trump, there's some kind of monetary transaction. I'm sorry for laughing.
And I can believe that, because what I'm just saying is, what my point that I want you all to react to. Tell me any situation. It can just be somebody at your school, at your work, at your job. I have never heard white people tell white people not to vote. But somehow, what you're saying, Horatia, you got people behind Black people telling Black people not to vote.
Yeah.
That's what I'm wanting to tease out. Lily.
This actually, this isn't about a white person saying not to vote. When she said that there had to be money behind people saying to vote for Trump, it was actually really funny you said that, because like 2, 3, 4 years ago, there was this Black lady who went on the internet saying that her parents kicked her out for like supporting Trump, and she needed help for college because she was a Trump supporter, and like every other Black person was turning their back on her. And so all these Trump supporters were sending her money and stuff Turns out homegirl was lying. She just wanted money for tuition, and she went that route. And honestly, I respect it. I would do the same thing if it hadn't already been done.
Because it was a hustle game. That's what I'm saying. That's what I mean. What those of us who are in New York, we know 3-card Monty. You just you just try, whoever gets stuck, gets stuck. We do. But when we're those of us who are fighting for the cause of social justice, we're like, wait a minute. Flag on the play. Unnecessary roughness. I mean, 15 yards. It doesn't add up. And that's what I want us to be able to challenge. I want you to know when you're talking to your friends, because here's the point. I know I pastor a middle-class Black church. And your middle-class Black friends are who I'm talking to. And each one of you all, when we have dinner and we have people over here, we got people that just say, nah, we ain't for this. We ain't for this. They really think that Donald Trump was okay. They prefer the enraged instead of the aged. That's it. The enraged instead of the aged. But here's one of the challenges that we want to face with, that I want you all to see as we make our way through. And it's called, as I told you, the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment. But in the 14th Amendment is these particular words. No person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of president and vice president or hold any office, civil, military, under the United States or under any state who, having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress or as an officer of the United States, as a member of any state legislature, or an executive or judicial officer of any state to support the Constitution of the United States, shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same, or giving aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. But Congress may, by a vote of 2/3 of each house, remove such disability. Brothers and sisters, that's the problem that we have. I remember that day in 2020. I was in the Virgin Islands celebrating my 50th birthday. I know where I was. And the Lord blessed us that we were able to be on a boat. So we were away. And the people on the boat didn't want to tell us this story. And by the time I got back, they let us see. And I went home and I watched all of the footage of these people climbing over the fence and seeing all of this stuff. Can you all believe here we are now in 2023 and people are still yet being charged? Can you believe this? That these people came in and engaged in insurrection against the country and took a plane and went home. But Khalif Browder was accused of stealing a book bag and was sent to jail for several years. This is the particular challenge that we have. And so now there are some states that very well might evoke this 14th Amendment against Donald J. Trump to say that his name should not be on a ballot. Now, one can say politics is like, well, every time you indict Trump, his numbers go up. Every time you do this, his numbers go up. But the point is, that's what this was designed for. This was designed for those who are in the Confederacy who decided to rebel against the Union. And that's what Trump led. Trump led an unsuccessful coup against the United States of America. And you know what we do? We're seeking to forgive it. That's what we're doing. And that's the same thing we did as a nation for the generals. General Lee. I mean, and I didn't even know that. I wish I had, and I know I can get Chris to chime in with me. The General Lee, we grew up watching the Dukes of Hazzard, celebrating the General Lee, who was in rebellion against this nation. Just think about that. These people, but yet, watch this, Angela Davis can't never come back. Shakur can't never come back. They forever talk about them, but these people they were generals, they were military people, and they got bases named, all of these bases named after them are named after white supremacists that rebel, or more importantly, they ain't even got to be white supremacists. Let me just call them traitors. They traded against this nation. And they get a base named after them. Now, and then we're told to shut up and be quiet because the politics working there. Who is this you, Lily, or is this Fanta?
It's me. I just wanted to say something when you dropped the naming after Robert Lee. Not only that, but the fact that as a culture of the South, Blacks who maybe didn't feel as though they should have sided against the Confederates named their Black sons after Robert Lee, including my grandfather. I know a lot of Black men named after General Robert Lee.
Absolutely.
Of our people.
Absolutely. And so what they almost treat, and again, let me, if that's okay, it's okay. It can be okay if that is okay. And by that, what I mean is that during this culture, people were naming themselves, Thomas Jefferson, Jones, or Robert E. Lee, James, and all of this other stuff. We did all of that type of stuff because, and what Abraham Lincoln had sought to do was to say that, you know what, everybody is pardoned. But all I'm just saying is, when Michelle, think about this, when Michelle Obama said, you know what, this is for the first time in my life, I felt proud of my country, and they wanted to kill her. Think about this. That's what I'm just saying. All she had was words. These generals literally killed arms and killed other white people, and they got streets and army bases and navy bases named after them. So, all right, y'all, I'll keep going because y'all just want to listen to me and Fanta talk. But so I wanted to just do that to catch you up with our current events. But the most current, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Can I ask you a question, Pastor?
Yes, ma'am.
You said collective, we are gonna want to forgive him. What we are you talking about?
Forgive who? I mean, which time? I say a lot.
For Trump, for the insurrection.
Oh, I'm saying as a nation. Yeah, like
Okay.
because that's what we ultimately do. Like, well, it just wasn't that much. And collectively to be able to excuse that type of behavior. And that's why, I mean, I know what Jack, whatever the state's attorney or the United States attorney is bringing charges, he's trying to simplify it, but he never charged Trump with insurrection. And that's what that is. Trump is clearly engaged with insurrection, and people don't want to charge him with that. Because to charge Trump with insurrection is to invite a civil war. That's why. That's it. And that's what Trump has already set up to go forth in this regard in here. That to say, let me be clear. Let's be clear, everybody. He didn't expect to win the election that he won. He said it. His kids didn't even vote for him. But somehow he got in there. And the reason why he got in there is because of this what do you call it? It's a spirit of well, it won't come to me. What is it? Not grief. Nonetheless, they don't like what's going on. There's a better word. And when it comes to me, I'm gonna give it to you. But that's really what it is that people that believe that the system is messing them up. Think about this. You gotta think about this, y'all. Let me just blow your mind. Technically a billionaire getting you to give money for him to run for president and or run or pay for his legal expenses. And I ain't got to talk about him. There are certain celebrities that I watch and then they say, subscribe. I'm like, I'm not paying $5 a month to watch your post. I'm not doing that. And am I close to calling somebody an idiot who does so? Maybe. However, let me just leave it right there without giving us. But I'm like, like you can follow Beyonce or you can follow Jay-Z, or you can follow all these people and just pay some money. And then what they say is you get some inside stuff, but you still ain't in. They don't know you. So when we're looking at this, when you're saying, who am I talking about? I'm talking about all of us that have basically just said, let's just get on and get over with it. That's really what the deal is. And afraid to really charge him as to what he has done and is currently seeking to do. That's the point. Because and all I'm just saying is, what if Barack Obama did that? I mean, they're doing some stuff right now. Yes, Joe is old. Joe is old.
They would have wanted to hang him.
Yeah, absolutely. Joe is old. I mean, they would have wanted to hang Obama, but Joe is old. But check this out. So is Trump. Trump can't remember who he's running against, which Bush, which president, which war. But nonetheless, ain't no traction on that. And all I keep telling you all this as an African American, this ain't got nothing to do with Joe, because Joe is the most, let me tell you what, if a white person could have a Democrat, it would be Joe. The problem is that Joe's vice president is a Black woman. And they're like, hell no. That's what those are facts. This ain't got nothing to do with Joe and his health and his mind. It has to do everything with Kamala Harris. So in that regard, then we do to Joe's biggest mistake when therefore he put his vice president in charge of the border. And then remember, she didn't visit the border till sometime this year or the end of last year. Terrible. It's terrible. It's bad politics. I know what they're trying to do, but it's still bad politics. And so when we look at and think about this, you all are aware that the United States of America has how many borders, ideally? Ideally, simply.
4.
4, that's correct. That's what he said. You can come in through California, Oregon, Washington, come in through Canada, or then come in through Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey doesn't. New Jersey, yes, you can still come. New Jersey, Maryland. I mean, I can keep on going. South Carolina, Virginia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida.
Mhm.
I did pretty good with my states. I hope y'all know y'all states. Gary, did I leave one out?
Texas?
Did you say
I haven't got there. I was still just on the East Coast.
Alaska
And Alaska on the other side. Okay.
and
but
Hawaii?
I was just, huh?
And Hawaii?
And Hawaii, but Hawaii ain't. But I was talking about where the borders are, where people are doing. When Chris, y'all funny, y'all funny. So what I was trying to do was to figure out the four borders of the United States of America, that all the people could come in, and all we're concerned about, Horatio, what you just said, is those that come in from the southern border. That's where the stuff is. It ain't for those who are coming in Canada, and it ain't for those who are coming in California. It ain't for those who are coming in. And if they, now somebody could say maybe they can come in, but the truth of the matter is, majority of the people that are in the United States are here from overstaying their visa. Those are facts. Can't change that. Now, when you deal with y'all's mayor, I'm glad I live in Westchester, y'all's mayor, talk about immigrants are going to destroy the city. Actually, the city is built on immigrants and will continue to be built on immigrants. And it's important to understand that. Now, y'all's mayor and y'all's president got to learn how to work together in terms of understanding what, here's the point. Why do you think people leave from where they are? Like, why ain't nobody coming from Canada trying to come down? Why are they coming from South America? And more importantly, watch this. Before I can do this, in the Americas, we have North America, Central America, South America. What are the states in North America? What are the countries in North America?
United States, Canada, and Mexico.
There you go. There you go. And yet, when anybody comes across the border, Chris, who do we say? Where do we say they come from?
They come from South America.
No, I'm saying, where do they say they come from? People say. No, you're right. I'm trying to help you. You're right. They come from South America, but people think they come from Mexico.
Right.
They're not coming from Mexico.
And they have to get through Mexico, but they're coming through from places like Venezuela, Nicaragua. Let's see where else.
Yeah, you hit it. You hit it. And that's the point, to be able to see, for us to understand. It's important for all of us to be able to know. So if we were to play a little game, Chris named North America. Can anybody name some Central American states?
Costa Rica.
Yes, indeed.
Panama, Nicaragua.
All right. You said two. Was that Arena?
Yes, I said Panama and I said Nicaragua.
Okay. I know voices. I hope y'all know my voice too. Good stuff.
Honduras.
Honduras, absolutely.
Jamaica.
Huh?
Jamaica.
No, well, technically Jamaica would
Colombia.
That is considered in the Caribbean, which is North America. But no, not Colombia. Colombia would be South America. But you would have Belize, El Salvador, Guatemala, with those names that they have already shared. And what that is, that's the middle between North America of the main states, Canada, United States, and Mexico. And then you got the middle, which is Belize, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, and Panama. That's in the middle. And then you got that other big state. Big piece of land, which is the country of South America. So now Can we name some South American countries?
Oh, that's-
Venezuela.
Argentina,
Venezuela,
Peru,
Peru,
Brazil,
Brazil,
Argentina.
Argentina,
Guyana,
Guyana.
Mm.
We can do Bolivia.
Oh yeah.
Somebody said
Ecuador.
earlier, Colombia
Chile, or however you say.
Chile. Yeah.
or
Guyana,
Ecuador.
Nicaragua.
Ecuador, Paraguay.
Yeah, so you Ecuador, Paraguay,
Uruguay.
Uruguay, Suriname. So you got and the point, and watch this. Here's the point to blow your mind. In New York City, for where we're doing, the majority of the people that are coming into our city are not coming from Belize, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico, Nicaragua, or Panama. They're coming from Venezuela. That's it's still the top of South America. It'd be different. But they still are coming a long way. And then they have to go through this thing called the Darien Gap, which is the gap that these people are leaving their places, risking life and death to come to our country. Wow. And we got to understand where they are. And it is important for us to know. And anybody who's from a Caribbean background, again, Alvarez will tell you he's from TNT. He is not from Jamaica. He'll let you know, I am not Jamaican. He'll tell you that.
Nope.
And watch this. And even though Pastor Lacy has a slur and all of that, you say, he country. I'm like, no, country's the South. I'm Midwestern.
Western.
Okay, that's why I'm from the Midwest. I'm from the breadbasket. And it becomes important for us to be able to know our what's trying to say? For us to know, like the differences that they begin to add up for us to know, to be able to engage and conversate, as opposed to thinking, you know what, this Mexican came in. No, that's not a Mexican. It's a Venezuelan. It's an Ecuadorian. It's a Chilean. But to us, it don't matter. And to me, that is inappropriate, and we don't want it for ourselves, and we shouldn't want it from anyone else. But what I want to pick up when I look at with this southern border crises is that in Venezuela, there are 7.7 million refugees and migrants. Wow. Okay, since 2014, 7 million people left their country. 7 million people left their country. And sadly, right now, what's going on, about 2,000 are trying to come into our country a day in there. So you ask your question. Pastor Lacy, you said 7.7 million refugees and migrants. What's the difference between a migrant and a refugee? Glad you asked. A migrant chooses to move. A migrant does this not because of threat of persecution or death, but just for a better life. A refugee seeks to move because going back will cause them to lose their life because of their faith or their political views. And that's what I want to let you know. There's a difference between a refugee and a migrant. But nonetheless, there's 7.7 million of them since 2014 and 2,000 of them that come every day. And it's happened. What said Pastor Lacy? Well, what happened in 2014? Well, in 2014, there was a guy by the name of Nicolas Maduro. and he was elected. And many people did not recognize his election as legitimate. Think about that. How do we feel when Trump won? A lot of people call him y'all's president. And so therefore in 2015, Obama placed sanctions upon him. But what's also interesting is that in 2019, Trump placed sanctions on him. And Venezuela is a wealthy country, but it was just driven by corruption. And in this corruption, that's what was taking place. In the midst of this corruption, in the midst of all of this money, all of this oil, there is corruption in terms of those who are allowed to vote, those who are not, political prisoners, and all of that. And now this company is in chaos. This country is in chaos. And
doesn't that go back to Hugo Chavez, though?
Yes, absolutely. I was just going with 2014, but yes, it goes back further to Hugo Chavez. You're absolutely right. To be able to nationalize the oil rigs and all of those things. Yes, absolutely. And so what I'm just saying, and part of that is a response to us. So when the president was saying that he put Kamala Harris in charge of our immigration policy, what he was saying, he was charging her to do when they were saying she didn't visit the border. And I got what they were saying, but it's like, what's that? 6.5 by a dozen, 2.5, however you say that line. The point is, if you can stop what the corruption that is going on before they get here. And so the problem is our sanctions actually has undermined the country, whether we agree with the sanctions or not. But I am telling you this, if Barack Obama put sanctions and Donald Trump put sanctions, that ought to tell you something. And our sanctions have choked the economy and the life and the corruption. And these people are risking their lives to come here. And I think that helps us inform ourselves on how to have a discussion about this. What can we do to stop them from coming in here? And so watch this at a 7.7. Let me be clear. There are still more, and we get so trapped in America, this and that. There are more that are going to Colombia. There are more that are going all to other parts of South America than are coming to the United States of America. But we love making the narrative out of that. But nonetheless, they wish to do that, to go to the Darien Gap.
Pastor Lacy?
Yes, sir.
Brother Brian put in the chat, where does the term asylum seeker fit in as it relates to migrants and refugees?
Well, the refugee gets to be an asylum seeker. A migrant is not an asylum seeker. A migrant is trying to find a job, a better way of life. And they just now made, which they didn't do with Haiti, let's be clear, which is sad. And that's what we talk about. Because when you look at, if those of you who don't know, when you look at Venezuela, come on, Alvarez, TNT is right next door to that. Aruba and all of those other Caribbean countries are there. So you had a whole lot of people coming up, not just those that are in, if you feel different about Caribbean versus South American. The point is, that is the point of departure, that people can come in and try to gain access to it. But when they're doing it by trying to seek political asylum, they're doing it as a refugee, that if they were to be returned, harm will come to them. Now, we cannot prove how harm will come to people from Venezuela, because we have cut off all diplomatic ties with Venezuela. So the problem is that if somebody comes in and you want to send them back, you can't send them back because you ain't in a relationship. So then you have to send them back to Colombia or send them to Argentina or somewhere else where somebody, so you got to get a third party. It messes it up because you don't have diplomatic, we do not have a diplomatic relationship with Venezuela. And that complicates it even more so. That's a very, 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 very good question. Is that everyone that is here is not, they might be just seeking a better life, and they have a right to. And even the TPS, the temporary protected status that they gave as a group, which again, they never gave to Haiti. They did give it to Haitians, but never gave to Haiti. That's when I fight back. Because Haiti is black. That's all I'm saying. It's black. And so they did it, but they only did it for those who have already applied. Any new people coming in cannot qualify for it. And what America's policy states is that to apply for any type of status in the United States of America, you have to apply for it outside and not when you come in. So those people that come in, they do not qualify, and eventually they get sent back out. Now, they might have a family member that's here to receive them, to allow them to stay while their case is being heard. And typically, sadly, what ends up happening sometimes is then they just overstay, they just disappear. And as long as they don't break any laws, they do that. And we can say all we want, but that's who cleans our houses, washes our cars, picks the grocery and cuts our lawn, all of this other type of stuff. It's time for a real honest dialogue. But we engaged in politics in this regard, as opposed to trying to talk about what really matters. And that's all I wanted to bring up to you is that, wow, can you imagine Obama and Trump agreeing on the same thing? And Obama, and guess what? Obama deported more people than any president in the history of the United States of America. Yeah, the ABC, yeah, Aruba, Bonaire, and Caracal. I would love to visit that. Maybe that, somebody that just want to give the pastor a gift so I can do study, to figure out what's going on in Venezuela. But that's what we got. Question is 612-812. I told y'all I done did a whole lot of talking. If y'all ain't talking, I'm good. Questions, comments, observations. If not, I'm gonna see you tomorrow.
You said something interesting, Pastor. It just made me think, and I put the comment in there with the asylum seekers, migrants, refugees, all of that mix. It's like a underground economy that's sort of started there. And instead of being free labor like slavery was, they've now become cheap labor.
There you go.
We're still doing the same thing, just under a different name.
Yes. And ironically, watch this, and it's funny, Texas and Florida, these Republican governors who are playing this game, their economies are now going to suffer because they're not allowing them in there. And the sad part on this whole thing is that they've been cracking down on these migrants or asylum seekers who wants to find a way to work, but not the employees, not the companies see what. Because again, they ain't going to GE. They ain't heading up to Detroit, but they're picking strawberries. They're cleaning up, salvaging stuff and something from all of these hurricanes. And it's that type of a labor that's in there that takes place. But Gary, I love what you just said. Now it ain't free labor, it's cheap labor. And we got to call, and again, and that now, but when president gives some of them temporary protected status, that means they got work papers. So now you got to pay them a decent wage. But when somebody's illegal, you can pay them whatever they want to accept. You're like, look, I got $100. How many hours can I get? What you gonna do? That's it. And those are facts which takes place. Horatio, your hand was up and then went down.
Yeah, I just have a question. Yesterday I was on the train and or even on the news, while I was on the train yesterday, A train, and I saw a lot of Africans getting on, and on even in the news now, I've seen them as on the asylum, they're asylum seekers also, but I don't hear where they're from.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And what I'm just saying, because all of the attention is focused on the southern border, many people from Africa and the Caribbean are coming through. They're coming through. But all I want to say is that, again, the majority of people, I believe we have 20 million people here. America can throw them out right now if we decided to intentionally try to find out who are these people that are undocumented. They're not illegal. They're just undocumented. The majority of them just overstayed their welcome. Even these people that are coming through the southern border, they're documented. You get their numbers, you got their information, and you send them to some place. And then the issue is, do they drop off? That's what happens. But that happens with somebody that's working for IBM. Okay, I want y'all to know. And so that we just focusing on these lower level people. It happens all the time. And what Barack Obama had said, which I like, was he just predicated this thing, but I'm not going to export you, but if you commit a crime, I will. And that's the whole intent. And let's be clear, which I love. Some of you all don't know who is, according to the statistics of United States of America, who's the best immigrant to come to the United States of America?
Nigerians.
Absolutely. Look at Arena. You're so brilliant. It's Arena. So it's Nigerian. Somebody might have thought it's Japanese, it's Chinese. No, it's Nigerians. It is Africans that come in. And when the Africans that bring their families in, they're saying, I don't need you to do drugs. I need you to get good grades in school. I need you to do blank, blank, blank. And so, and the sad part is, what we fail to see is that almost like Black men, these immigrants or these migrants or these workers, even if they do file into the system, they are contributing to the Social Security system, maybe will be deported or even die. My father never saw a Social Security check, and a whole lot of Black men do not. They pay in Social Security all of their life and never receive a Social Security check. And the point is, immigrants do the same thing. Well, again, and so that is not trying. I want, what's it, Pastor Lacey, what's the purpose of this conversation is not for us to be pitted against the other. It's to understand what's the system and how can we directly engage in trying to find some type of solution. And some of the stuff we created. Again, according to the Monroe Doctrine, we destabilized half the damn countries in South America in the first place. We done killed their leaders, whether in Grenada, or others. We did. Maurice Bishop, I want y'all to look up that name. He was assassinated by the CIA. Maurice Bishop would have been just as big as Nelson Mandela. I want y'all to know that. And these are facts that we just can't change about our effect on the Southern Hemisphere that we want to control. And so therefore, you just can't make it focus on the Rio Grande. You got to begin to look at what's taking place in Belize, what's taking place in Brazil, in Chile, and Uruguay, and all of that. And again, and the Caribbean. Because think about this: because how we own them. There's a U.S. Virgin Islands and a British Virgin Islands, which means somebody owns it. Guam is owned by the United States. Puerto Rico. These are the things that we just, when you sit with your little friends and you can have a conversation, you talk to be able to educate them, and slowly we can be able to make a difference. Questions, comments, observations? All right. There being none, I am certainly excited to be able to talk with you all on our Civics Conversation. We got great movement, we got great attendance, and that's why I was here. And so now, if those of us who wish to explore the Bible on tomorrow, we can go 7 o'clock and we'll do the same thing. So until then, be blessed and stay woke.